Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Awakening with the Girls.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Awakening with the Girls. I am really excited for today's conversation. It is going to be super bright and informative, I'm sure. And it is with somebody who has a lot to offer. So, Miss Carla, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you've been up to?
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody out there. My name is Carla Samson, and I'm an aligned embodiment and signature soul brand coach. And I help purpose-driven women to create freedom-based online businesses based on their soul energetics and based on their passions and their gifts and their many ways of creating in the world. And I have been a coach for nearly 12 years now, going through several different iterations of what that looks like. But now in particular, I'm helping women to create their online businesses.
Beautiful. And to do that, I know from personal experience, you typically have to go through quite a journey to even understand how to help others kind of bring out their inner soul passion. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what kind of sparked your spiritual journey? When did you feel like you were waking up?
Yeah, that's a really beautiful question, Shannon. The waking up process for many is quite a journey. And for me, it definitely was. I ended up, when I was about 21 years old, finding out through a deep process of manifesting intense depression, anxiety, a massive amount of pain in my body, I found out I had Lyme disease. And this was a particular time in my life that I found out I had Lyme disease, that I was going through some real challenges in my life. I was drinking a lot. I was using drugs. I was in a time in my life when I just felt awful. And I kept asking the universe and kept asking that part of myself that I didn't even know how to ask yet, is this all that life has to offer? And at that particular time in my life, then I found out I had Lyme disease. And it sent me on this massive healing journey because I could no longer do the things that I always loved to do, like partying and going out and being with friends. As I said before, I started to manifest this insane amount of anxiety, depression, pain in my body, and I couldn't be the girl that I loved to be. And so I became a recluse and I isolated from my friends, and I went through a big spiritual awakening through a journey of choosing to heal myself. And through that process for 10 years of my life, I went through this massive healing journey where I traveled the world, going to work and live in spiritual communities with medicine workers, worked with many different styles of medicines, and then really dove into energy work and energy medicine and energy practices, and basically healed myself 111% from the inside out. Through this journey, I was given the greatest gift, honestly, of going beyond healing myself into a place where I ultimately felt empowered. And I felt like life had actually given me Lyme disease in a way that it was working for me, that life was working for me in those moments. And in retrospect, I can look back now and see that, that our biggest challenges and our biggest fires that we walk through are actually here to be our greatest teachers and to deliver us a particular message that we're ultimately here to give back to the world. And so as I started to realize, 10 years later, after all of this had happened, just realizing that, my greatest struggles were my greatest gift, that my mess was my message.
I was going to say that. I feel like you're a big leader in that understanding of the hero's journey and making a mess a message. That's a phrase that I've been kind of really tuned into recently as well.
Yes. And and so I came into a place where I realized that I had something to share, and it was simply just from what I had learned through my life. And slowly but surely started to develop what I call a signature soul brand, which is basically creating a business based on who you are, allowing your life to be a PhD program. And this is what, since I went through that process and walked through that process, I am now able to hold women in creating that and doing that for themselves as well.
I love it. I always try to ask people when they don't seem to know what their purpose is or what drives them. I ask them, well, what would they teach their younger self? Like, what was it that they needed the most, or what brought them the most joy in their earlier years? And for you, it seems like just finding that hope and that light kind of in the dark situation was really important. So you being able to teach others how to find that light through that transition is really what I think finding your life purpose and your soul brand is all about too. And it's been a powerful journey. I've been through at least one, maybe two of your courses, and they really helped send me in a different perspective. And it's part of why I actually recreated the Awakening with the Girls platform, is because I want other women to not ever feel alone or scared through their awakening, because I know that when I first started kind of connecting with different energy and spirit and Reiki, no one in my closer knit community understood. But the more I embraced, kind of like you mentioned, the mess that I had kind of been raised in or put in, it became more of a message to reach out to others. So what were some different things? I know you mentioned you traveled and you got into the energy work, but what were some of your first steps into researching this other type of lifestyle? You said that you had been kind of partying and, being a normal teenager into your early 20s and exploring life. What was maybe your first step out of that? Was there a book or a synchronicity or something? I know you said you had Lyme disease, but what triggered the rest of the journey?
That's a really great question. And, I want to just backtrack for a moment into your message here for Awakening with the Girls, this inviting women to not be alone through their struggle, or inviting women to step into a level of community going through their awakening. And that was something that I didn't have. And maybe you feel the same way, Shannon, is, back when I started to go in my healing journey, this was not normal. Like finding energy medicine, finding emotional freedom techniques, finding, working with plant medicines, it was not something that was it wasn't a normal thing that people did. And so what I'm hearing you say, of really wanting to build a community and helping women to be in community within their awakening, this, like, for me, it was the deep need came from feeling so isolated. Because when we get sick, or when we have disease, or when we go through big challenges in our life, the thing that we are ultimately taught to do is actually to not talk about our struggles, or to not talk about our big emotions, or to not talk about the things that we're going through. And in fact, it's more acceptable, and this is how it feels to me, living in, that old paradigm and that old structure, that it's almost more acceptable to stay quiet about what we're actually going through. And so I did that. I stayed quiet about what it was that I was actually going through. My friends were concerned. They were like, "What happened to you, Carla? Like, where are you? Why aren't we seeing you anymore?" But I couldn't tell them. I felt embarrassed that I was going through that in my life. And what I did know was that I didn't want to feel like that. And I think that was the catalyst for me, was this knowingness. It was, even though I was going through the struggle, it was this knowingness that I didn't want to feel isolated for the rest of my life, that was not meant, like, that was not me. I was like, there was something bigger. Even though I was going through the challenge, and maybe you out there are feeling this too, perhaps in your life right now, is like, you're going through the challenge, you're going through the struggle, you're going through your fire, but you also know that you're meant for something bigger. And you also know that you're meant to expand and move out towards your outer potentiality. And this roadblock is here for one reason or another to teach you. And so I just want to say that you're not alone if this is how you're feeling right here, right now. For me personally, it was, I started to, I was actually, at that present time, I was working at a gym, and I was a personal trainer at a gym. And I would go in and into this gym, and it was like a normal old fitness gym in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And there was this woman there, and she had this presence to her that was so beautiful and really outgoing and inspiring. And I was curious by who she was, and I found out that she was the yoga instructor at this particular gym. And anyway, not many people were doing yoga. Like, it wasn't a mainstream thing at that particular time. But I was curious, and she invited me into one of her classes, and I went to her class, and oh gosh, it was like yoga was so challenging for me, but it really inspired something within me, because I walked out of that class and oh my gosh, it was like my pain had reduced so, like, just tremendously. And my breath was deeper and I felt good, maybe for the first time. And so I ended up using, like, my gateway into all of these, spiritual practices and into energy medicine. It was fitness and it was yoga. And so I was running every day and I was working out every day, and I was doing yoga little by little, because it made my body actually feel better. And from how one thing leads into the next, like synchronicities are always continuously leading us from one thing into the next. Fitness was like my gateway into yoga, and yoga was my gateway into energy medicine, and on and on and on and on. And so, yeah, that's sort of how I started on my journey. But the real catalyst for me was that I was just graduating from college at that particular time. And I had some friends who were overseas in New Zealand, and I just decided I decided that I didn't want to feel bad. I didn't want to feel sick anymore. And I wanted to travel and see if the universe could help me to heal. And I bought a one-way ticket to New Zealand and didn't return for a year to the United States. So
awesome.
that was the big piece for me, was traveling, honestly.
That's beautiful. I know there's a lot of people that want to travel, me included, that are afraid to make that like bigger international jump. So what kind of advice would you have? It seems like you just kind of felt the call and you went, but if someone didn't know where to start, what's the first step into making that jump?
I think it's first and foremost knowing what style of human you are. I think that there are different types of travelers. There's the type of traveler that needs to have structure, right? Like that masculine structure in place, like needs to have an itinerary, needs to know where you're going and where you are staying and like all of the things that you're going to be doing. And if you know that about yourself, if you want to go international, then that would be, to alleviate the stress and to allow your trip to be really fun, create that structure for yourself. For me personally, at that particular time in my life, I was so in feminine flow. And I just knew that the universe had something to teach me. I don't know how to explain it, but I just knew it. And it was just this, it's like it's sort of like the feeling of walking to the edge of a cliff. You know that feeling when you walk to the edge of a cliff and you see the water down below you, and you've seen other people jumping off of that cliff into the water, but you still walk to the edge of the cliff and it still scares the crap out of you. You've seen other people jump and you're like, but is it really safe? Is it really safe for me to go? But at the very end, it's like the initiation to trust, right? Is that you actually end up diving in and it's really fun, and then you want to do it again, right? And so I think that for some people, if you feel like there's this potentiality for the universe to hold you, that getting over that initial fear, that terrifying fear of jumping, that's the precipice. That's the invitation. And so if you can get over that initial fear and just allow yourself to jump, I cannot even begin to tell you how the universe, God, Goddess, life force, source, whatever you want to call that intelligence of this life that we are a part of, it shows up every time to hold you when you jump. And it's like, what does Terence McKenna say? He said, it's like this quote, like, you jump off into the void of infinity and you always land in a feather bed, something like that.
Yeah, there's always an unexpected outcome, and usually they're pretty good. They're better than I've expected it in a lot of different circumstances. I know that when I first did the first trip to Michigan from Maryland, that was a big trip for me in general, and it wasn't even international. It was just kind of going out of my comfort zone and with new friends, and it was quite the experience because I had traveled, but I'd always traveled with family or with like one solid partner that I had been with for a while. But this was like new ground to me. And it opened up such a new potential for community. It's where I crossed paths with you and like dozens of other amazing beings that have been so influential to my spiritual journey. And I know that there's so many people that are trying to find that connection in like their hometown, and it's just not there. Like getting out of your hometown was like so key for me for a while, even if it was just to explore and to not live. So I'm always curious on other people's suggestions, and I think what you shared was very beautiful.
And you know, Shannon, this is actually what you're speaking to right now is a big piece of why I ended up taking myself into the online world and started to create online businesses, because what I realized is that we have a bigger soul family, we have a bigger tribe, we have a bigger community that's not just inside of our physical proximity. And so what you experienced when you traveled to Michigan is that you met so many people that you wouldn't have had the option of meeting in Maryland, right?
True.
And so this is why I decided and chose to bring my brand and bring my business online and to be an online entrepreneur, is because I know that there is this soul tribe and this soul community that is so much bigger than just my physical proximity. And so now I'm reaching out and able to touch the hearts of, you know, women from all over the world. And that's one of the most beautiful things. When we travel, we get to be in physical proximity with people we wouldn't actually have the capacity or be able to be with often. But that's why I love the interwebs and the wide world of social media, because we have the opportunity to connect with like-minded hearts and souls from all over the world.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing, and it's good that you did, because now that's becoming kind of the new social norm, is to connect more through the internet and virtually and through like global connections in that direction. And you have several different levels to your business. You actually had an in-person yoga studio, and I believe you still do, and you have taken you also have cacao ceremonies, and you've taken those online and a lot of different aspects of your different platforms. So tell me a little bit more about how that transition has been for you, and what suggestions you have for people and how they can kind of like reach out to you and work with you in taking their physical business into the virtual world.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, Shannon, because you're right. I'm a multidimensional creature. I have lots and lots of different ways that I like to play. And a lot of the women that come to work with me are very much in that same realm of having lots of passions and lots of gifts and lots of ways that we like to play and serve in this world. And so, yeah, I do have a sacred embodiment and yoga studio called Align Divine in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I still do have that space, but not at the same capacity that I used to run it. Like, it used to be just a yoga studio that would run with classes, and now it's my own private studio that I'm doing one-on-one VIP experiences with people at that space. And so what I chose to do is create what is called my Femme Genius Mountain. So this is the first time that your audience is hearing about my brand, but my brand is called Femme Genius, where I empower women in their multidimensional potentiality, being able to play in many different styles of their passions and their gifts, and to create what is called their signature soul brand based on their energy, based on all of their many gifts. And so the way that I did this in my own life is that, yes, I had this yoga studio and I desired to get into a bigger platform because my genius was so much bigger than being a yoga instructor. I had so much more that wanted to come through me, that wanted to channel through me. I didn't want to be defined by just being a yoga instructor. And so what I chose to do was to start to create online programs that helped to up-level women in their own spiritual and soul's evolution and potentiality. And the way that I did this is that, first and foremost, I believe that our awakening, a big piece of our awakening in my journey, started with my body. And so that's why the first and first and foremost, I have my program, a program that's actually being developed right now, which will be an online program called Align Divine, which is all about bringing our spirit into the body and becoming embodied as these souls. And this will be through movement, through yoga, through breath work, through practices in the body. And then from Align Divine, what happens is that then my clients can choose to up-level into my program called Artificial Intelligence. And artificial intelligence has to do with emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence basically being able to process and move emotions that no longer serve us. So whether we have been through circumstances, traumas, experiences in our past that have been challenging, we can sometimes get energy stuck in our bodies, like what happened with me with Lyme disease. And so through my own journey, I have learned many different spiritual energy practices and movement practices that allow us to be feminine leaders, meaning that we lead ourselves through being able to manage and process our emotions. And so artificial intelligence is all about rewiring our emotions so that we can become the masters of our energy. And then from there, I invite my clients to up-level and level up into my next program called Sensual Success Strategy. And Sensual Success Strategy is about the mindset and the embodiment of success. Like, how do we actually start to become so unbelievably organized in our bodies, minds, spirits, and emotions, and in our day-to-day lives, that we can actually begin to implement these strategies of success into our lives. And then from there, I invite people to up-level into Signature Soul Brand, which is about creating your business based on who you are and based on your personal energetics, what I have been speaking about. And then from there, we up-level into my program called Quantum Accelerator, which is a mastermind program of really up-leveling and scaling your money blueprint and creating a next level business that is of service and a beneficial presence on this planet. And so I know that's a lot of words and that's a lot of things, right? Because this is the path that I have chosen to invite women into to really come into the fullness of their potentiality. Mm-hmm. And so a way that starting in 2021, there's actually going to be it's called the Femme Genius Academy, and you can actually start at the beginning of the year, and it's a year-long program that goes through each and every one of my programs, one after the other, after the other, after the other, so that you are birthed into your full expression of who you have come here onto this planet to be.
I love it. I love seeing the evolution of your dream passion project, because Bring Me to Life, that's kind of our goal too, is to create an academy where people can feel that connection to waking up. And I have been watching your journey for at least the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, because one of my first trips to Michigan, we crossed paths at an event called Metamorphosis. And I just remember seeing you kind of frolicking across the field in dance motion with your partner. And you were just in such a bliss state. And then I asked my partner, Silamana, I was like, who are they? Like, they just look so happy and they're just so blissful. And I think at that point you guys were going by Synchronicity. Is that still a thing?
Well, I still go by Synchronicity because I create with
Is that your DJ name?
Yeah, it's my DJ name.
Okay, so I remember him being like, that's Synchronicity in our part, and he was like telling me about how you guys do like carnival dancing and all this performing. So that's something else I want to get into, is how performing has played a part in your journey, because you just have this light to you. And that's actually, I participated in one of the very early sessions of Sensual Success Strategy. And it was at a turning point for me when I had a bunch of energy kind of pent up in my body and didn't know where to go with it. And it was a beautiful outlet to kind of set me back into my passion, because I too had a brick and mortar space that wasn't serving me. And I've since kind of like transitioned it to a friend who now still has that space as our private studio for us to kind of work with together. But I've been able to focus on my virtual path. So I know that was a huge catalyst for me. And I really enjoyed seeing it evolve and seeing how many layers you've added to it. Now I can only imagine how much growth people would get out of the full year's worth of transformation. So that's really beautiful what you've built there.
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember you, with your brick and mortar space and wanting to get into the virtual world a little more. And look at you now.
It's quite a transition, and it's definitely been synchronicity in that too. It's like a synchronistic like series of just blissful events. And I'm so glad I did, because with the current happenings of the world, I don't know where I would have been if I would have just focused all of my eggs in one basket. And you were a very big kind of trigger in the, you got to focus elsewhere. And I'd already had Bring Me to Life as a platform, but my heart was being so torn and I didn't know how to participate on both levels. And you were able to really kind of help me focus that in. So I appreciated what that had to offer. And I shout out to other women who are looking at and how to be that multidimensional being. It's important to play in all the areas.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like for me, there was just a point in my life where I just decided I no longer wanted to be defined or tethered to any particular definition. It's like when people like meet you for the very first time, the second question that they will ask you besides, "Hi, what's your name? What do you do?" Right? People ask you, "What do you do?" And so what I realized is that as human beings, we are defining ourselves based on what we do and based on how we make money. And that to me feels so limiting, because we are putting ourselves in these boxes confined to the hours that we are giving to a particular job that is creating income in our lives, instead of defining ourselves as these soul expressions, these spiritual beings having a human experience. And so what I love is that, business, this portal into entrepreneurship, and you might feel this too, Shannon, is that like this path of becoming an entrepreneur, this path of becoming a business owner and a woman in business, it's a spiritual path by nature. And so if we can allow for these spiritual insights and these spiritual practices and these spiritual knowingness within us, we basically can allow for ourselves to uncage and to become definitionless and to become limitless, because that is ultimately what our soul is inviting us to be and to become here on planet Earth, is to evolve into our most sparkly expression and essence on this planet. And it just makes me feel so excited when, that we are starting to wake up to this, and that it does feel like such a revolutionary movement of women who are starting to realize that, we don't have to cage ourselves into these tiny little boxes of these tiny little ways of being anymore. This is about exploring all of the different ways. And so as Shannon was saying before, it's not that I'm not just a business coach and I'm not just a yoga instructor. I'm also a performer, and I'm a circus performer, and I do fire dancing and hula hooping and acrobatics with my husband, Scott. And we travel the world and we play in so many different realms, because we are here to not be defined by what we do. We're here to be defined by who we are being every single day of our lives. And how do we show up as the best versions of ourselves every single day and every single moment? And that's my curiosity. That's what I question. That's my question every single day to myself, is how can I show up as the best version of myself so that I can be of service to others and doing the very same thing.
I love it. I think what's really important though is to remember to follow that joy and that play. You always incorporate play into your practice and your movement. And you mentioned we've been talking about how you're a performer. How has being a performer affected you, and how did it help maybe empower you? It seems like you were kind of uncomfortable being in your body for quite some time there. And now you seem quite comfortable in your body, and you empower others to do so as well. So how has that kind of blossomed within you, and what steps did you have to take to kind of feel that confidence again?
Yes. So I really believe that every single human being on this planet is an artist and a performer, right? That we put on our costumes every single day, each and every one of us. We put on our different costumes in the way that we dress, in the way that we do our hair, in the way that we put on our makeup. We're always putting on costumes. We are literally being different characters, walking around in our lives, creating these different characters for ourselves. And that's what I mean really when I talk about being multidimensional, is that we're able to become shapeshifters, able to become these different characters in different aspects and areas of our lives. And so there were so many years of my life that I was so afraid to be seen. There were so many years of my life that I was you're right, I was so uncomfortable in my own embodiment. And honestly, I didn't choose to be a performer. Performance chose me. I just started playing with hula hoops and playing with fire and dancing. And just because I liked to do that, I didn't take any classes. I didn't really try. Like, I was just loving what I was doing. Going back to what you were saying about, keeping it playful and joyful, is that's how have always kind of lived my life, is living in this realm of playfulness and joy. And as I continued to move towards my play and my joy, I started to get these offers. People were wanting me to, show up and start performing at their events, gatherings, festivals, parties. And I just kept saying yes to that. And I had to get over some massive blocks, these visibility blocks, that actually is a big piece of what I teach in my program, Sensual Success Strategy, right? Is to get over these fears of being seen, of being in our full illuminated expression, and really allowing ourselves to come into playing what I call our power characters, these characters that we get to actually create for ourselves and become the performers of our lives. It's really about stepping onto the stage that is your life and being the star of that stage of life. And so performance for me has been an amazing and incredible tool to get over the fear of visibility, and also to continue to recognize that I am the one designing this destiny, that I am the one designing these characters that I get to play in, and I am the one that gets to choose how and what my character gets to be. And it feels so empowering when we recognize and realize that we are the ones who are actually getting to choose the characters that we play.
I got a lot of that from your Central Success course as well, because you reminded me that it's not just a brand, that it's a lifestyle, because you treat yourself with like dozens of roses, and you buy clothes that match your brand color. So no matter where you are, you're always in brand for a good photo. And like, it was more than just a photo. It was like, you want to feel like that character all the time, not just in front of a camera for your business. And you really embody that character. It's made me go out and get more flowers for my studio, and made sure that like I do things with different intention. And I went through my closet, and that kind of was something that rang through my mind, like, oh, well, I don't actually wear this ever. Why do I have it? Oh, it's not part of my character anymore, so I can donate it. Like, it was just,
I love that. Yes.
It was like a different experience going through it when I realized, like, okay. And I'm somebody who will compare life to a video game quite frequently. I always talk about The Sims, and how like my higher self is the person who's in control of the sim, telling me what to do today. And it's a very different way to look at life. And it's given me a lot of hope to know that there's like a higher self playing the game of life that is me. And like you said earlier, it's usually got a feather bed to catch me. It might put me through something for some entertainment of the universe, but there's usually a lesson to be learned somewhere.
Yes.
So that's quite the journey and experience to remember that we are these different characters. So what would your character from the future now tell your younger self? I know we've talked a lot about some things that you've learned, but somebody who is, again, just feeling uncomfortable, doesn't have confidence, doesn't know where to even begin in their awakening. I know you said traveling has been beautiful, but maybe just if you could give yourself some advice 10 years ago, what would it be?
Yeah. And, I mentioned it briefly, but I will re-speak to this I wish in that moment I would have known that life was happening for me and not to me. That's what I really wish my younger self would have known. Now, in retrospect, looking back and seeing my big journey of this awakening process, like I used to really identify with being the victim to my life, like that I didn't have a choice, that I wasn't able to change anything, that everything that happened to me was because, because it was something and it was that I didn't have any kind of choice, or I was the victim to that. And now I realized that, had I really trusted that life was happening for me, because wow, if I could be that younger woman and see myself now, that is actually kind of blowing me away right now, because we just never know what life has to offer us. But I do truly know in this experience right here, right now, that we are the co-creators of this reality. And when we just start to see that life is happening for us and not to us, we never know what the trials, tribulations, circumstances, events, and challenges of our life are actually here to gift us.
It's beautiful. That is beautiful. Another question I like to ask my empowered leaders is, what is a reference or person of interest that you would recommend somebody just getting into this experience to look into? Was there any sort of book or maybe a talk or video you listened to that was inspiring and has stuck with you through your journey?
That's a good question, because I read so much.
Or even a book that's inspiring you now or reading right now.
It's hard to say, like, what are the, if I could point anyone in a direction, I would point them in the direction of the Gene Keys, which is crafted and created and channeled through by Richard Rudd. And the Gene Keys has completely revolutionized my life. In fact, Femme Genius was based highly off of my journey of going through the Gene Keys. And it's not something that you can just look up one day and spend 20 minutes looking into it. This is something that is a life path and a life journey. And so if you're really interested in knowing your soul's purpose, if you're really here to create something magical and special, but you're not quite sure how to start, get yourself into the Gene Keys and start your life's journey with the Gene Keys. You will not regret that.
I think you were the third person to tell me that this week, so I must dive in.
You must. If this is a third time, then this is like there's definitely
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the Gene Keys. All right, everybody, we're gonna have to start the Gene Keys. We'll get into the Bring Me to Life community group. We'll talk about it. Let's dive in together.
It is the most epic. It's the most epic path of getting to know yourself. Because Richard Rudd, he really. Let me just say, I'm not any kind of affiliate for the Gene Keys, but I will talk openly about it and just point everyone in that direction. Richard Rudd, he really channeled through, because he was studying the secret sciences of astrology, the human design, and the I Ching. And he brings it all together as this path based on when you were born and where you were born. And he gives you this clear roadmap based on your genetic code and based on your genetic frequency. And that each and every one of our genes manifests either in a shadow, in a gift, or as what's called a siddhi, as our highest expression. And so that's all I'm going to say for now. It's a secret path of getting to know yourself in the deepest capacity and in the deepest experience.
Wow, I'm excited. I'm going to have to dive in much deeper.
Yes.
Hope other people do as well. So We've shared a lot of beautiful discussion today. What else is kind of channeling through you, or do you feel called to share? Is there anything, or how can we reach you? What do you want to channel through right now?
Hey, yeah. Well, at this particular moment, I do have a program. I don't know when you're going to be posting this podcast. Is it coming out soon or is it coming out later?
They typically come out every Friday, so I'll probably have you up next Friday or the Friday after. When's your thing? I can make it happen.
Oh, well, my program is starting, Signature Soul Brand is starting on Monday. And so that particular container would be closed by the time this one came out next Friday. But starting in July, I have a 6-month mastermind program called the Femme Genius Biz Academy. And that includes the 3 of my programs that I talked about, called Sensual Success Strategy, Signature Soul Brand, and Quantum Accelerator. And so you don't have to have a business completely ready to go and in mind to come into my Femme Genius Biz Academy. But I am calling in multidimensional, purpose-driven women who know that they are here to play in a bigger role, that they are here to be leaders in this feminine paradigm that is birthing on this planet at this particular time, and this abundance paradigm that we are birthing at this particular time, and desiring to be of service to this planet and to create the contribution that you know that you came here to create. And so the way that people can reach out to me is actually, you can just find me on Facebook. That's the easiest way, at Carla Elizabeth Samson. I have a group on Facebook called Femme Genius that I would love to invite you beautiful ladies into. And you can private message me if you are curious. And you can also find me on my website, which is www.carlasamson, that's SAMSON.com.
Beautiful. You
Yeah.
you recently just did a intense virtual journey. I know we talked a lot about how much you've taken your business into the virtual world, but you did a 365-day challenge to be authentically real with the world. You basically created your own reality show. How did that experience change you?
That's right. Yes. So, yeah, as Shannon is saying, I did a 365-day Facebook Live journey. So I was coming on to Facebook Live every single day for 365 days and basically becoming really vulnerable. You know, there was a long time in my life that I could count myself as being a bit of a perfectionist, right? And I don't know how many of you guys out there feel this, but this feeling of like, if it doesn't look perfect, or if it's not perfect, I won't show up, or I won't do it, or I won't post it, or I won't express myself if it's not perfect. And I just wanted to blast through that. It was a big piece of it, was that a big part of that intention was to blast into vulnerability and to really speak from a place of, here's what's alive for me every single day of my life. And the greatest gift that actually ended up evolving from that, which was, I cannot even begin to express how beautiful, but is that I started to attract these amazing women into my life who felt like they were on a very similar mission to my own. And so it was just these feminine genius beings started showing up every single day through my 365-day journey. There are some women that ended up joining me every single day, literally every single day for 365 days. And it really gave me a deep understanding of how leveraging social media and these online platforms can really help to create greater ripples of change on our planet. Because if we're, I just didn't want to hide anymore. I felt like, I'm here to create change. I'm here to be of service to this new paradigm. And a paradigm, for those of you who don't know what a paradigm is, basically when I say this word paradigm, it means a system of beliefs that have been agreed upon for over and over and over and over and over again through generation to generation to generation to generation. And I feel like I came onto this planet, and I'm an Aquarius. And so I have this rebellious style of spirit to me, but I do feel like I came onto this planet to question that paradigm that we have been agreeing upon generation after generation after generation, and asking questions like, does it really have to be this way? And I feel like I'm here to be a voice for our planet Earth. I'm here to be a voice for this rising of the feminine. And when I say the feminine, I'm not just talking about women. I'm literally talking about the energetics of the feminine, which has to do with moving out of competition and moving into co-creation, which has to do with creating abundance for all, and which has to do with circulation of our abundance and love, which has to do with rising into more flow and being unscripted. And through this 365-day Facebook Live challenge, that's what my message ended up just effortlessly becoming an unscripted woman who's creating a business based on who she is, not what she does. And so this 365 journey was one of the best things that I could have done in my entire life. And it also, it taught me the power of commitment, because before that I had struggled with making real deep commitments to myself. I can commit no problem to my husband. I can commit no problem to my dog. I can commit no problem to people outside of myself, but to commit 365 days to myself was something that was a little more foreign to me. Mm-hmm. And so that was learning how to show up and be all in no matter what was the greatest gift that I could have received. And that was simply by putting myself and my face literally out there into the internet world every single day for 365 days.
It was powerful. I know I tuned in several of the days, as many as I could, and you pushed through on days that the internet was giving you troubles, days you didn't feel good. There were days you did art. There were days you did dance parties. There was just so many different aspects of it. It really truly showed the different dimensions that are what creates your soul brand. So I'm really grateful that you've put yourself out there to be a role model for women, because there needs to be more inspirational role models out there. So people can find you at carlasamson.com.
Yes. Yes. They can find me at
carlasamson.com.
carlasamson.com. They can also find me at femmegeniusacademy.com.
And they can join the Femme Genius group in Facebook to reach out to you. And I believe you're also in the Bring Me to Life community group. And if you're not, feel free to share your programs in the Bring Me to Life community group so people can find you and stay in that vibration. And I'm just
Beautiful.
really grateful you've been here today. Thank you so much for so much beautiful knowledge and sharing.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here, Shannon. It's always so nice to connect with you and be in your beautiful sacred portals of evolution and awakening. And yes, thank you.
Yay. Well, to all the beautiful women out there listening, I hope you take some time to check out Carla. And until next time, I hope you stay awake and shine on always. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for shining on with us.